This is our first ever time on the channel we've had somebody from the CIA. And a lot of you guys have probably seen his work and videos over the years. I certainly have watched him on a variety of medium. Fascinating insight to have Robert Steele with us today. Were you by any chance, Robert, thanks for your time, were you by any chance doing false flags for the CIA?
I did one false flag, and I have a lifetime secrecy oath that I have never violated. The one tiny exception is I feel it's important to tell the world that false flags are very real, and I ran one for the CIA, and I've written chapters and articles about false flag events because they are one of the most common ways of deceiving the public. A false flag is simply not what it appears to be, and it started in maritime piracy, where the pirates would fly the flag of the ship that they were coming toward, and then at the last minute, they could surprise the ship. So false flag means nothing more than not what it appears to be.
Well, thanks for clearing that up then. So just a quick disclaimer then, because of things going on YouTube, the views of the guest do not necessarily represent the views of the interviewer. Do not shoot the interviewer. Do not send me death threats. I'm getting them all the time. And this interview is going to end up with us talking about corruption amongst Zionists and Israel. And on this channel, we expose corruption in every country. We're not, focusing on any particular country, but with this particular guest today, that is the direction that this is going to go. And we're going to start out.
Well, let me clarify. We're going to focus on corruption in the United States of America. It happens that the Zionists, the Vatican, and the City of London are three of the major corruptors of the United States at the federal, state, and local level. So this is about cleansing the United States and drawing the line on restoring the integrity of the republic.
So mainstream media, they said that Jeffrey Epstein was the head of this conspiracy. And now they're bringing in Ghislaine Maxwell. And there's a whole range of theories. On one side, people are saying this is all the public are going to access now. Ghislaine is the sacrificial lamb for the vengeance that's required now. We've all watched Filthy Rich. We saw the victims crying. The whole world is now clamoring for justice. People are going as conspiratorial as to say that Ghislaine has prearranged all this. You know, she's going to get a short sentence. She's going to buy a sentence down behind the scenes. And then you got the other side.
Shot in the head.
Yeah. At the other extreme, you've got people saying
Hillary Clinton has already announced her suicide by 2 bullets.
So, yeah, how does this play out?
Well, let's start with the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was the Pratt boy, Ghislaine Maxwell was the Mossad officer. People need to understand that Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, one of the most famous Israeli spies in history. And I'm one of the top reviewers for nonfiction books, over 2,000 nonfiction books in 98 categories. And at 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏net, you can find my review of Robert Maxwell, Israeli spy. So Ghislaine Maxwell is from a family of Mossad operators, and I believe she was the Mossad operator. She was, in essence, a Mossad madam, pimping children and others in New York City before Jeffrey Epstein was brought into the picture. Epstein was basically a failing private school teacher. They sheep-dipped him at Bear Stearns so they could pretend he was a financial genius. And Les Wexner, a Zionist from the MAGA group with the Brofmans, the beginning of Zionist crime, along with the other guy that started crime in Cuba, Les Wexner provided $1 billion grant to the Mossad so Jeffrey Epstein could pretend to be a billionaire. And Epstein was brought in because they couldn't get Clinton and the boys in. Maxwell needed a boy to bring in the boys. All right, so Epstein was basically the hired help, and it is very, devious the way they showed how Ghislaine Maxwell was allegedly his assistant. It was the other way around, in my view. And it's very important for people to understand that this pedophilia entrapment operation, which is directly focused on blackmail, was also focused on stealing intellectual property. Epstein was giving grants to Harvard and MIT and other places, and he was basically recruiting agents for the Mossad and stealing intellectual property for the Mossad for Israel within the entire American spectrum. He is also reported to have recruited Governor Richardson in New Mexico and a chief scientist from the U.S. Air Force, and to have significantly advanced Israel's theft of nuclear technology and nuclear processed uranium from the United States through Richardson and the chief scientist of the United States Air Force. I have no direct knowledge, but the ranch that Richardson had in New Mexico, Richardson State, was being used to fly stuff in and out of the United States, and his tail numbers were protected diplomatic tail numbers, which he probably got from Dynacor, which is one of the organizations that traffics in children for the Zionists and for private profit. So this is all a wonderful, wonderful story. And the last 2 points I would make is that the pedophilia entrapment ring in New York is just one of 50 pedophilia entrapment rings across the United States of America. And it is my personal belief that all 50 of those Mossad pedophilia entrapment and blackmail rings have CIA and FBI complicity. They are protected. Chiefs of police and sheriffs are told this is a national security matter, stand off.
Wow, fantastic depth of knowledge here, Robert. This is great from the get-go. Got a few questions then. Is the theft of the nuclear secrets an extension of the trajectory that started with Robert Maxwell and Promis and Maxwell trying to bring Epstein into the fold?
Long before that, one of the reasons John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and Israel did not assassinate him. Kennedy was assassinated by Allen Dulles and rogue elements of the CIA, the FBI. Well, actually, not rogue elements. The FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was a pedophile who took small children from the mafia as gifts. And he pioneered political blackmail in the United States of America. The FBI was hired by the Zionists to eliminate the Italian mafia. And people need to understand that Chertoff was Rudy Giuliani's handler when Giuliani, as a Zionist tool, took out the Italian mafia to free the way up for what's called the Red Mafia. And I don't want to say Jewish mafia, because the Red Mafia is primarily Russian criminals claiming Jewish citizenship, Israeli citizenship, who are Zionists, not Jews per se. Very important to distinguish between Zionist criminals and the Jewish faith. And I tip my hat to all of the rabbis. In fact, I've got a photo of rabbis saying that Zionism is the enemy of Judaism on my website at tinyurl.com/Zionist-parasite. So we have essentially allowed the Zionists to occupy the United States of America. And this nuclear smuggling, one of the reasons Kennedy was assassinated was because he was putting a stop to the nuclear smuggling, and he was going to force the Anti-Defamation League and the AIPAC, the Israeli-American Political Action Committee, to register for what they are, agents of a foreign power. And I anticipate ADL and AIPAC being forced to register as agents of a foreign power in the near term.
What was the purpose of ensnaring Prince Andrew in this? What was the end game with him?
Oh, that's a lovely question, because I want to defend Prince Andrew. I believe that Prince Andrew simply got caught up and fell for the 17-year-old babe. In my view, Prince Andrew was the picture in the window that draws them in. He was the celebrity attraction to bring people in. I don't personally believe that Prince Andrew participated in toddler and 13, 14, 15-year-old pedophilia. I don't believe Prince Andrew participated in satanic ritual abuse. I believe Prince Andrew was simply used as a window dressing, celebrity attraction, and all of the really bad stuff that Bill Clinton and others were doing, including Hillary Clinton. Bill and Hillary Clinton apparently achieved pedophilia nirvana on Lolita Island, traveling separately. And they both like girls.
What do you base that on about the Clintons then?
That's a very good question. I would just ask people to do their own research online, look up Clinton, Epstein, Lolita Island, and if you really want to have a good time, look up tunnels, and you'll eventually see a picture of the tunnels and the children huddling in the corners. And I have no direct knowledge, but I believe that all of the media reports that I have seen say that Epstein is the Epstein estate. I think Epstein is still alive, but the Epstein estate has spent $20 million filling in all of the tunnels under Lolita Island, including one that is believed to be a submarine entrance.
Yeah, Epstein was so tight with the Clintons. I've looked at the transactions with the Clinton Foundation. And, in one of my books, American Made, I learned about the history of Clinton protecting the CIA drug drops and his cocaine. How
forgive me.
his own
Let me
brother was
point out that
arrested.
Clinton was an agent of the CIA. Bill Clinton was created by the CIA, and William Barr was the CIA's officer handling Clinton for Bill Casey under Reagan. Okay, now I think Barr has flipped. He's come over to the good side, and that's why he's so valuable as an attorney general. Bill and Hillary Clinton were nothing until the CIA turned Arkansas into a carrier landing platform for small children, drugs, gold, guns, and cash. And gold, yeah, gold, I've already mentioned gold. Okay, this is really Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush took CIA to a new level of crime. CIA learned how to run drugs and launder money in Vietnam. But then George H.W. Bush took it to a new level of crime. And I've written an article, a post, if you look up 7 CIAs, there's 7 different CIAs. And I always have to emphasize that 90% of the people that work for the CIA are good people trapped in a bad system. But the CIA was created by Wall Street. Allen Dulles and others were sent down to persuade Herbert Hoover that we needed a CIA. He thought it was going to be a central collating facility for analysis collected by others. It turned into a monster, and that was Wall Street's plan. CIA was essentially Wall Street's secret lily pad from which it could penetrate and subvert all elements of the U.S. government, including particularly the military. There are 1,000 bases all around the world, not for America's defense, but to provide lily pads for smuggling children, drugs, guns, gold, and cash.
Because they're the most profitable industries in the world, and of course they want to get those locked down. You brought me to Bill Barr, then that was actually my next question. So Bill Barr's got a history of CIA cover-ups going back to the Franklin scandal. What makes you think he's flipped sides now?
That's a good question. I have no proof, but all of the indications that I'm seeing is that Donald Trump is going to take down the deep state. There is going to be a purge of the secret intelligence community. And I have extraordinarily high regard for Sidney Powell, who I hope will become a Supreme Court justice in the next 4 years. Sidney Powell has said publicly that one of the reasons that the CIA and the FBI targeted Mike Flynn was because he was going to do an audit of all of the illegal offshore gold and other activities that the CIA and John Brennan particularly were doing. Now, your readers can find a chapter on 𝗏𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗁𝗏 and John Brennan running a gold war against Russia, with Bill Browder as an agent of the CIA in Russia committing economic acts of war against Russia. If it were up to me, Krongard, Brennan, and Browder would be delivered to Vladimir Putin with a red ribbon around their neck, and I would leave them to the Russian criminal system. Putin had every right to put a nuclear bomb into New York because of what they did. They ran $240 billion in offshore gold in the Black Eagle Fund, which is the outgrowth of the Black Lily Fund, which is the fund that was created by Ed Lansdale and General MacArthur and the Treasury Department from all of the captured gold in Japan. That story is told in the book Gold Warriors by my friends Sterling and Peggy Seagrave, who are now passed. But I do a very good summary review in the book. So Flynn was going to clean up the intelligence community. And that was one of the major reasons why the deep state actors, including Brennan and Comey, who I'm told likes to dress up as Howdy Doody when he's meeting children, this is really bad stuff. They went into a panic. My personal sense is that Barr, who worked for Reagan and cleaned up after Iran-Contra, was hired by President Trump in a move of genius because Barr knows where all the bodies are. And I think Barr has essentially made a deal that saves him and tears down the others.
So it's like if anyone's watched the Roman Empire on Netflix, you've got all these competing
Families.
factions just seeking power and ready to stab each other in the back at any moment. What you're describing is it's exactly like that. You know, they switch allegiances on whoever they think is going to rise up next.
Well, I don't know switching allegiances. I find it absolutely fascinating that over 27 Republicans in name only have switched over to Joe Biden. I find it fascinating that General Mattis and 6,000 veterans who may or may not know that their name was used in this Lincoln Project have accused President Trump of being a traitor to veterans. Nothing could be further from the truth. President Trump is trying to end the endless wars. He's trying to close the bases and bring our troops back. The deep state is in a panic because life as they know it is over.
So the mainstream media contain the Maxwell Epstein case as them as the principal co-conspirators. If Maxwell doesn't get suicided, it obviously won't go to trial because names can't be named in a trial. It'll end up in a plea bargain. Will she squeal on Wexner?
Well, first off, everybody knows that Wexner funded this. I think Wexner's days are numbered. If I were Wexner, I would be emigrating to Israel immediately. But let's go back to whether Maxwell was actually arrested. We don't know whether she was arrested or not. This could very well be a body double. If I were Maxwell and Netanyahu, I would have Epstein and Maxwell very safely put away. Or if I were Trump, I would have Maxwell and Epstein very safely put away. And I would bring out a body double, and the body double would give out the names that we've already got. And let me make a point here. We don't actually need Epstein and Maxwell because the National Security Agency has every phone call, every text message, every call, every game chat, every steganography message inside of an image going back 15 years. The problem is that the National Security Agency is not supporting the President of the United States of America. I've had this conversation with Bill Binney, the technical director, who blew the whistle on NSA spying on Americans. With 10 people in 30 days, we can pull every single name, every single bank account, every single transaction, every single trip. We can pull it all. 10 people, 30 days. In my view, NSA, the National Security Agency, as well as the FBI and the CIA, are betraying the President of the United States of America. Let me also point out that Bill Binney confirmed for me 2 days ago that NSA has every single green line or secure call by John Brennan in the clear, because NSA is the manager of the CIA encrypted communications. So all of John Brennan's calls to Gina Haspel, who betrayed the president as chief of station London, and all of John Brennan's conversations with MI6, which has been basically running the colony. We faked independence. The Freemasons just faked the Declaration of Independence. And we have been a colony of the United Kingdom ever since. We've simply been pretending to be free. And we became the American bully boys for the British Empire. So there's a lot of stuff here that can be revealed. I think the next 4 months may well be the most important 4 months in the history of the United States of America since the fake Declaration of Independence.
Are you suspicious about the timing of Maxwell's arrest? The official story from the prosecutor is it took them this long to dot the I's and cross the T's on the indictment.
I think that's absolute baloney. I think Maxwell is a theatrical operation. The FBI is a theatrical agency. The Department of Justice is an advanced theatrical agency, which is still full of Obama holdovers. I think every person that signed anything against Bill Barr should have been fired on the spot, or at least ordered home. Let them have their salary. They have no business being in a government building conducting government business for we the people. So all of this is theater. I'll tell you how I think it's going to play out. I think in the balance of this month, there will be some major announcements. In August, there's going to be a major counterintelligence investigation. The ducks are going to be lined up. Legislation is going to be prepared. In September, which is the only month before election when both chambers are in session, okay, the House vanishes in October. September is going to be a month where I pray, I don't know, but I pray that President Trump will introduce 2 pieces of legislation. One, to radically purge the intelligence community and basically put all of these people out. And 2, to introduce hashtag unrig election reform, which is what will give him the mother of all landslides, because it will show the libertarians, independents, hashtag walkaways, and others that they can recapture Congress and have a fair shot at Congress, which today is controlled by a two-party tyranny that disenfranchises 70% of all eligible voters. Now, on the 1st of September, I expect the road show to go out. I expect everyone to have burned their masks. I expect the president to declare America to be a mask-free zone. And if you're still wearing a mask, you should be fed through a wood chipper, so we can cull the herd of the idiots. This is really fascinating stuff. I also expect this counterintelligence investigation will document that not only Antifa, but Black Lives Matters are Zionist organizations. They're funded by Zionists, led by Zionists. They're anti-family, and their sole purpose in life is to create a race war.
And the purpose of the race war is divide and conquer?
The purpose of the race war is to distract everybody from the fact that we're going after the Zionists, finally.
Okay, so if this...
Forgive me, let me make a quick point. Warren Buffett just took all of his money out of Goldman Sachs. Warren Buffett knows what's coming. Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse, and UBS, among others, are going to see themselves looking at $100 trillion in civil and criminal forfeiture because of the work that we're going to do at NSA and the work that has been done by Wes Christian and others documented the naked short selling. There's $100 trillion in naked short selling illicit wealth from Wall Street. There's another $100 trillion less well documented in money laundering from child trafficking and drug trafficking. Okay? Now, illicit wealth in the United States of America, once documented, can be confiscated by civil or criminal forfeiture without trial, which means Wall Street cannot roll out the legions of lawyers and do the 10-year delay plan that it always has, which is why Eric Holder did the Holder Memorandum, which took jail off the table. I want to point out that Eric Holder is a partner in Covington and Burling, which cheated General Michael Flynn of $3.5 million while stabbing him in the back. Okay, this is the law firm Covington and Burling that was in conspiracy with the Department of Justice, which means that Sidney Powell can not only go after $3.5 million, she can go after triple damages for conspiracy. If I were God, Covington and Burling, every partner there, including Chertoff, who's at Covington and Burling, are you starting to see the lines connect? Okay. I would put Covington and Burling out of business, and I would take away the law license for every single partner at Covington and Burling after I took away their money.
So I used to be a stock market and options trader. My wake-up call was when Buzzy's outfit short sold the airlines before 9/11. That really just blew my mind and made me see the world completely differently. You can make a lot of money selling short. Should we be selling short Goldman Sachs right now then?
Well, I'm not going to, I will say this. Number one, there's a difference between short selling and naked short selling. Naked short selling is when you sell stocks you don't own, phantom stocks, and you don't deliver the money. Short selling has a perfectly legitimate use if you have good information on a firm having problems. Now, Wall Street matters to the American economy. And what most people don't understand is that if President Trump takes the crime out of Wall Street, the stock market will double. Because what has happened in the last 15 to 20 years is all the inventors and entrepreneurs have understood that the system is rigged, and that when you go to a placement firm, they will then tip off the naked short sellers, and your placement will be driven down, so you end up giving up 3 times more shares than you planned, and then you will be driven off of the listing, and then your company will be driven out of existence to protect them legally. Because once all of the shareholders are gone and the company doesn't exist, it's legal immunity for the criminals that destroyed the company. So I personally think that Donald Trump is a genius, and he's going to take the crime out of Wall Street. And it's not just Goldman Sachs, but Goldman Sachs is certainly the biggest criminal. And let me point out that Munchkin, the Secretary of the Treasury, is a skull and bones man, not just a Goldman Sachs Zionist. So I think there's some very interesting, and then again, I think some Zionists have flipped. For example, I think the Rothschilds have flipped. When Lynn Rothschild ran her conference on inclusive capitalism, that moved me. And what I saw there was Lynn Rothschild finding an exit strategy for the Rothschild family. And I salute that, because I'm huge on truth and reconciliation. I'm huge on America first, making America great again, made in America, localized self-sustainability. If we can flip the Rothschilds, and we flipped Munchkin, and we flipped Barr, then I think President Trump has what are called the Pope's divisions, and this is going to be a smash hit.
People are rooting for the Clintons to be indicted in this Epstein case. We both agree that it was an intelligence agency operation. And as the conspiracy is spreading out, you said Wexner is at risk. Now, is there a line that the intelligence agencies will not allow to be crossed? It'll stop at Wexner, for example, to protect the Clintons.
First off, you will notice that John McCain and George H.W. Bush died at home. I expect the Clintons to follow them. I would not be at all surprised to see Dick Cheney also go that way. There are some cases that simply should not be tried in public. Now, there are others, such as John Brennan and James Comey, and McCabe and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, that should be tried in public. It is my hope that when Sidney Powell is done, when the Justice Sullivan finally signs off, he has no alternative but to sign off on the appeal court order that General Flynn be exonerated. I would like to see Sidney Powell brought in as an assistant attorney general. I would like her to be a major player in both the Wall Street action and the online censoring RICO action that's being developed against Amazon, Facebook, Google, Meetup, which is controlled by the Anti-Defamation League. There are 1,087 #resist meetups for which the fees are waived, and the Anti-Defamation League is the co-sponsor and manager of all of those. People don't understand that the Anti-Defamation League is President Trump's #1 public enemy. This is a very serious point to make. And then, of course, YouTube and Twitter. And the third RICO action is going to be the Zionists that have blackmailed and subverted not just presidents and CEOs, but judges and prosecutors across this country. There is this crime network, and let me also say that the Catholics have their equivalent crime network, in which the Knights of Malta and Opus Dei are subverting judges and so forth. And the Mormons have their network, and the Mormons are also giving children, a Mormon cult known to Mitt Romney is giving birth to children who don't get birth certificates and are sold in Turkey for $50,000 each. Okay, so the Zionists, the Catholics, the Mormons, there are multiple layers of crime in the United States. And one of the things people don't understand is that the National Security Agency has it all, but has always refused to provide signals intelligence support to clandestine operations overseas or to counterintelligence operations here in the United States of America. We can clean up America with evidence suitable for the public within 90 days if we can get Flynn and Binney back in business. Of course, I would like to join that fight, but I scare more people than General Flynn does.
I read about you saying that Hillary was a pedophile. Do you remember the case that she did actually get a pedophile off that had really brutalized a victim, and she was cackling about it afterwards? How evil are the Clintons?
Well, first off, there are many cases. One of the best books around is Cathy O'Brien's book, Transformation of America, and I've written a review of that book. I also want to say that the book about Bob Hope is false. The book that accuses Bob Hope of being a pedophile is in fact a woman who is being sued by a movie screenwriter whose script she stole. So the Bob Hope pedophile book is false. The Cathy O'Brien Transformation of America book is one of the best things out there. I also recommend Catherine Huspatz's Child Hunters, which is about pedophiles that murder their children after they've been raped and tortured. I I don't think the Clintons are particularly evil. I think they were simply made by the deep state, using the CIA as its agent, to turn them into evil people. You know, I mean, Clinton, at a low level, Clinton said he let Monica Lewinsky, give him a blowjob because he could. Okay? You know, given a choice between doing nothing and letting a fatty give you a blowjob in the privacy of the Oval Office, lesser men succumb. I don't think that's particularly evil. I mean, the satanic ritual abuse and the drinking of child's blood after torture, adrenochrome, the eating of organs and fetuses dropped on the ritual floor, that's evil. And the synagogue of Satan is one that is shared among the Zionists, the Jesuits in the Vatican, and the royal families of Europe. That's your real evil.
So you described the politicians then, even the presidents, prime ministers, as low-level players in this pyramid. Who's at the top of the pyramid?
They're the hired help.
Who's at the top of the pyramid?
From where I sit, the Rothschilds are very much at the top of the pyramid. And I'm hopeful that because of Lynn Rothschild, President Trump has an ace in the hole with the Rothschilds. He has another ace with the 100 trillion. He has a third ace with Cynthia McKinney. The Zionists are trying desperately to keep Cynthia McKinney from reaching President Trump. She has the power to single-handedly give him a mother of all landslides. And I did a cartoon with Ben Garrison, which I don't know if you guys can fit it up, but if people go to GER Graphics and look up the cartoon Lift All Voices, we identified the top authentic black leaders plus 2 white leaders that the White House is not talking to. President Trump, all of his mail and all of his communications are being controlled by the Zionists through various means, and of course CIA and FBI. And President Trump is being held back by Jared Kushner and Brad Parscale and the Zionists. Like, there is this one particular young man who I'm not going to name because I don't have enough evidence, but he gets private time with the president. He is funded by the Zionists, just like Black Lives Matters is funded by the Zionists. And so I think President Trump has a real problem in that he is not getting the decision support, the intelligence, and he is not getting the counterintelligence that he needs in order to hit it out of the park in November, which he's perfectly capable of doing if he starts on the 1st of August.
Are the Rothschilds at the top by virtue of their wealth and connections, and how does the British royal family fit into that structure, the hierarchy?
It's a question I'd rather have people read up on in other books. My sense, I've never understood why the Rothschilds were able to get away with central banking. I mean, from where I sit, if I were president of the United States, I have the power to kill the Rothschilds tomorrow. So I don't get it. I really don't get it. And my sense is that the Rothschilds made it, going back to the 17th century and before, they made it by bribing everybody who could order them killed. And they basically shared the wealth with those people who had the power to kill them on behalf of the public. I finally figured out war. War is profitable for 1%. It's not profitable for the 99%. Peace is 1,000 times more profitable than war, but the profits from peace are distributed across everybody. And everybody doesn't have the power to lobby and bribe and blackmail the Congress. I'll tell you, I'm all about #unrig. In 2022, I want to see a Congress in which the Democratic and Republican parties have been destroyed, and we have libertarians, Greens, independents, and others in Congress with no corporate money, no banking money, making evidence-based decisions with an open source agency that can provide holistic analytics, true cost economics, and open source everything engineering. It is within Donald Trump's power to lead the first American revolution that completely wipes out Freemasons. I forgot to mention them. They're the major power, okay, even above the Rothschilds in some ways. The Freemasons and the Knights of Malta and the Sionim for the Zionists, all of these people are traitors. And we have all of their names. We have all of their calls, all of their texts, but we haven't used that information. I would like to see that information harvested in August and used in September.
So I've written a series of books about the war on drugs, and I know how the Colombian cocaine cartels worked with the CIA. Carlos Leyda, for example, as a US government witness in the federal system, said he'd given 10 million towards the war in Nicaragua. How do the Mexican cartels work with the CIA, and why was El Chapo made an example of?
Well, I think Pablo Escobar was also made an example of, and so was Marcos in the Philippines when he refused to share the gold with George Bush. Libya was taken down because Omar Gaddafi wouldn't give the French a deal on oil. They bribed Hillary Clinton to give them Libya, and in return, she got Libya's gold. All of this is basically criminal families in the United States, the two largest of which are the Bush crime family and the Clinton crime family. So it's the American crime families that are keeping the American government from serving we the people and creating heaven on earth. There is more than enough money for every person on the planet to be well fed and have a roof over their head and have plenty of happiness. Okay, the pursuit of happiness. I mean, I have this thing here, the Declaration of Independence. Form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, not for the invasion of everybody else, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and prosperity. The American government has not been doing that for the last 50 years. Actually, you could say it hasn't been doing that for its entire history because it was actually a Freemason theater concoction, and we continued to serve the British Empire. We just had the pretense of freedom.
So you've described a world where organized crime and government coexist. If they needed to take Epstein out, would it be the case that the political intelligence agency side of it would hire organized crime to use their connections in the prison system to do the dirty work?
There's a lot of outsourcing. I mean, my reading is that Epstein was pulled out by the U.S. military. There was a van with a very senior ranking U.S. military officer. They took him out. The pictures of Epstein dead is actually a dummy in a firehouse doing a drill. Okay, all of that was faked. When I was in the Central American Wars, I was one of the first two CIA case officers assigned terrorism as a full-time target in the 1980s. And I was in a major hub. I just say it, I was in Panama, which is the hub for terrorism, crime, and everything. And I thought I understood organized crime, but once I actually got into it and I started working with agents, including bankers, what I realized was that what you really have is disorganized crime. What happens is everybody is in a come-as-you-are, pay-to-play thing, and people make alliances on any given day for any given project, and then they separate. And then they come back together. And it's all about the money. It's all about the protection. It's all about who controls the judges, which is why pedophilia entrapment is so important. Okay, pedophilia entrapment is a major way of controlling judges and prosecutors. And what Sidney Powell did not get into in her book, License to Lie, is the degree to which our judges and prosecutors and sheriffs and chiefs of police are controlled by the Zionists, by the Vatican, and by others.
I recently interviewed Stephen Kinzer about Gottlieb and 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏. He said believes that those experiments were wrapped up. Are even worse experiments going on these days?
Yes. Now, I have no direct knowledge, but let me point out that when we negotiated a treaty with the Nazis, they didn't actually lose the war. We negotiated a treaty. And Hitler and his principal people and all the gold and art treasures and stuff was generally evacuated to the United States and to the northern Argentina. We gave the Nazis CIA and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration as their homes within the U.S. government. And one of the things I learned from Cathy O'Brien's book, which I believe, and I've spoken to her personally, is that the Germans brought mind control with them, not just extraterrestrial and free energy and anti-gravity and stuff like that. Mind control is very big in the fascist mentality. And one of the nice things about mind control is you can actually use humans as messengers and completely bypass NSA's collection activities. So the most evil are not in NSA's database, but they do have deprogrammable humans. And one of the interesting things I've been watching on the side is the deprogramming of mind-controlled people and the bringing out of everything they ever their owners thought was erased. I think we're going to see some huge advances in the next 4 years. There is absolutely no alternative to President Donald Trump if the United States of America wants to survive as a country and also cleanse itself of these parasites that have been sucking the bone marrow out of this country. And I really specify not just the Zionists, but others who have been running crime families, including the Bush crime family, the Clinton crime family. I regard the Obama crime family as kind of a transgender mutation and not at all at the same level as the Bush and Clinton crime families.
Do you believe
like that little innuendo?
I've never heard it like that before. Do you believe that 𝗬𝗲𝗏 was mind controlled?
Yes, absolutely. And Jack Ruby. Lee Harvey Oswald was absolutely a patsy. I have reviewed over 15 books on the JFK assassination, as well as one video that puts George H.W. Bush there as a CIA non-official cover officer. You know, there's different levels of mind control. I mean, the most obvious is hypnosis, where you'll do stuff and not remember it and so forth. The CIA is lying when it stopped all of the mind control things. I think that has continued on. And one of the things that people need to understand is that CIA is more of a boutique agency. NSA is the one that does the heavy level cyber stuff. I had one operation in my career where I brought in a whole bunch of stuff that I picked up from a cyber operation back in the 80s, and the reports officer walked off the job. They didn't want to process it because CIA doesn't know how to process massive amounts of data, which is why they've outsourced to Amazon, which works for Tel Aviv, as does NSA. Okay? So Amazon right now is violating the law in so many different ways across the databases. It has become and we can talk about the Department of Homeland Security, which Chertoff created as the Zionist headquarters for controlling U.S. law enforcement communications and protocols, to include teaching our law enforcement officers that American citizens are like Palestinians. We're cockroaches. Okay? This is stuff we've got to clean up. I think DHS needs to be disbanded. FEMA, fortunately, has gotten out of the false flag business ever since I and several others pushed hard after the Boston bombing, Orlando, Sandy Hook. I think FEMA has been put under adult control, and that's a good thing, because if FEMA does one more false flag event, it is going to be the death of FEMA. There are a lot of people across the 22 million veterans and the former retired intelligence officers who are very, very angry at how Obama turned American citizens into prey for the U.S. government.
On false flags, then, what was the purpose of 9/11?
It's a really great question. And let me say that tinyurl.com/911-POTUS is there. There is a chapter in that 911-POTUS in which it is documented that the planning for 9/11 began in 1988, when the Twin Towers were condemned by the EPA, which said they would have to be brought down manually, a $2 billion albatross on the states of New York and New Jersey. Planning took place with Israel and Netanyahu and Larry Silverstein and Meg Greenberg from AIG, which is a Zionist control element that also collaborates with the CIA. If you have anything insured, your entire life is delivered by AIG to the CIA, okay, and to Tel Aviv. By the way, AIG insured the Twin Towers for $7 billion and then spun that insurance off to others. So AIG never ended up losing any money in 9/11, which was initially insurance fraud. Okay. In 1990, I think Dick Cheney was briefed on 9/11 and said, "I love it. we're going to use this, and this answers your question, we're going to use 9/11 to create a police state at home and endless war abroad. And that was the purpose of 9/11. The Patriot Act was written long before 9/11, and in fact, the states of New York and New Jersey owned the Twin Towers until July of the year in which the Zionist Dick Cheney plan to murder 3,000 people in a false flag was executed.
Wow. So back to the war on drugs. From alcohol prohibition, the politicians know that by making something illegal just makes mayhem in society, and they stopped the prohibition. Why does the war on drugs continue to be allowed? Why aren't all drugs made legal and taken away from the cartels?
It's an important question. I think the reason is that the U.S. government makes too much money on running drugs itself and running children. I mean, one of the problems we're having now is that children are being taken away from human traffickers by officers representing the Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and Customs. And instead of putting the children into the system, they're completing the sale so that the money goes to them rather than the human traffickers, okay? The U.S. government, 20% of the U.S. government is dirty, dirty, dirty. And we have no one who can be trusted. Now, let me point out that the FBI was doing some very good work against Congress, against congressional corruption, up until Abscam. Once Abscam happened, Congress freaked out. They suddenly realized that they could be taken down by the FBI. So they imposed all of these controls that essentially gutted the ability of the FBI to investigate Congress without telling Congress that it was investigating Congress. Okay? I would give one of my arms and one of my legs to be allowed to help create an intelligence and counterintelligence cell supporting President Trump that takes every single traitor, elite pedophile, white and black collar criminal off the streets. And we can do it within 90 to 120 days if we can put people like Bill Binney and 𝗪𝗃𝗰𝗵 and Mike Flynn back in service and then put me in the back room. I've proposed that the president throw the press out of the White House and turn that into a proper command center with a Trump studio, a truth channel, a strategy thing. And then I want to have the back room, which is the open source agency that answers 96% of the president's questions quickly with information that is risk-free, completely open, and can be shared with Congress, the press, the media, and the public and foreign allies. Okay, right now what we have is a chicken shit White House that is not getting intelligence support, not getting counterintelligence support. Donald Trump is carrying this country on his back by himself.
You've mentioned the industrial scale trafficking of kids. Where are the kids sourced from?
Oh, I love that question. People should go and find my video from the London seating of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry on Human Trafficking and Child Abuse, which I was the Chief Justice for. It's been translated into French and Spanish now. It is the single most authoritative statement on child trafficking, going toward 8 million children a year. There are 3 sources for children in this trafficking scheme. The first source is children bred as a cash crop. And people can look up this Mormon cult that was in the newspapers in the past 2 years. A specific Mormon cult has been breeding little white babies to sell in Turkey for $50,000 each without birth certificates. And that's part of the problem. When you breed children for as a cash crop, they're not recorded. Their births are not recorded. They're basically a free good. All right. Now, Mitt Romney absolutely knows all about pedophilia. And in fact, Romney under Bain Capital probably was the chief money launderer for the Mormon criminal network. Okay, so there might come a time when Mitt Romney should face indictment and justice. That's one source. The second source is runaways and orphans and war debris and others like the children being brought by human traffickers who are then taken away. So there's this large number of children. In the United States, it runs toward 800,000 a year, okay? And oh, by the way, every organization created to help children is inevitably run by pedophiles within a few years. So that includes the Boy Scouts of America, it includes the National Center for Missing Children, it includes all of the Child Protective Services agencies, and one of the main reasons for anonymity in adoption is to protect the pedophiles from the parents finding out what has happened to their adopted children. Vladimir Putin stopped the adoption of Russian babies because they were being bought by pedophiles in the United States of America. And he has told Trump that if he doesn't take care of the American elite pedophiles, Putin will. And I would be very glad to be on that kill squad. Okay? These people need to be put down. Now, the third source of children, and this is really a scary thing, is there are catalogs of children. There are teams that go around the United States and they love white suburbs that are peaceful, where the children are playing and there's no crime. And they take pictures of these children. They create catalogs, okay? And I assume they're digital catalogs now. But in the old days, it was a really nice picture catalog with numbers and a pedophile in Los Angeles, which is Adam Schiff's main area. I think Adam Schiff is fully cognizant, if not a participant in pedophilia. He is certainly a cover-upper of pedophilia in his congressional district. Schiff needs to be put down. But they would pick that and say, okay, I'll take that one. And then a four-person team would go out and literally kidnap that child and deliver it to the pedophile.
Method number 3, is that what happened to Johnny Gosch?
I don't know. I think it's what happened to Bo Bennett or Ramsey, whatever her name was.
Look, we're almost at an hour here, Robert. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you would like to say in conclusion to the people, and also to the people watching this? We've got a bunch of your links in the description box below this video, and I urge people to go down and check out Robert's work and support what he's doing. So would you like to say anything in conclusion to the people watching this?
My final word is that there's nothing wrong with America the Beautiful that cannot be fixed by putting the American public back into the American government. And you do that with hashtag unrig election reform. If Donald Trump will embrace Cynthia McKinney and authentic black leaders, put legislation in front of Congress in September for election reform, there are 12 different things that have to be done, and purge the intelligence and counterintelligence community so we can start doing evidence-based governance in the public interest, he will be the greatest president ever, and he will win by the mother of landslides, which he is not scheduled to do at this time.
Thank you for watching this video, and please let us know in the comments what you thought about it. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscription logo is in the bottom right hand corner. Thank you for helping us get to 500,000 subscribers. And also a huge thank you to all the people who donated on PayPal, Patreon, all those links are in the description box, as are links to all our other related videos and socials and everything else. So again, Robert, thanks very much for your time. Fascinating insight there. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.